Who called it crazy plan first?
That was certainly my father's reaction. So I summed it up in the book that way. But most people thought it was crazy. That I know when I finally got going a little bit, why people around Portland, Oregon, which is kind of a small city atmosphere in a larger city, they said, Phil Knight, he's got a Stanford MBA and he's selling Japanese sneakers. And so most people thought it was crazy, but I didn't think it was crazy. And the good thing was my college professor that I wrote the paper for didn't think it was crazy.
And the reason you were interested in running, that wasn't your first sport?
Well, my first sport was baseball, but I got cut from the baseball team. And we were talking earlier before about the coincidences in life. I was the last guy cut on a 25-man team. Just think if I'd have made that team, where would we be today?
We wouldn't all be runners, or nobody would be runners.
We wouldn't be sitting here talking today, I promise you that. But I did get cut.
And it hurt.
Oh, it killed me. And it still bothers me. But and my mother said, I had twin sisters that were twins, and my mother says, leave him alone, he's really suffering. And then finally she said, that's enough of this moping around the house. You either go out for track or get a paper route. So I went out for track.
Why shoes? I mean, why not knee socks or sweaters? I mean, what was it to start with shoes?
Shoes basically are the one important piece of equipment for a runner. That you know, if it's basketball, it's a ball. If it's baseball, it's a bat and a mitt. And but running, shoes are it. And my old coach firmly believed that an ounce in a pair of shoes over a course of a mile was worth 10,000 pounds in the last 3 yards. And so he was obsessed with it, and it kind of caught my attention. And then I became kind of a guinea pig of his on experimental shoes, and so it built from there.
That Coach Knight is talking about was Bill Bowerman, a legend at the University of Oregon. Bowerman was determined to create a better running shoe for his athletes, but when his ideas went ignored by anyone who made running shoes, he decided to make his own. His passion soon became Knight's passion. Okay, so you decide to go off on this adventure. You're going to go around the world. You're also going to stop in Japan to see about these shoes.
I went to sporting goods stores and looked at the different shoes, and I saw the one that I thought made the most promise was made by Nitsuka Company Limited in Kobe, so I went to Kobe.
So you're in Japan, and you go visit the company, and you pretend like you are a company.
Yes.
But you weren't a company, though, right? You were not a company, but at least you became a company as you were sitting there in your mind.
That's right. That's the way I thought of it.
Okay,
That's
you
right.
became a company.
Yeah.
Okay, so you sit down with these Japanese businessmen, right? And they had a shoe factory. They had a shoe. What was their shoe called?
Tiger.
Tiger. And so you sit there, and what happens?
There were about 20 people in their accounting department, and as I walked through, they all stood up and bowed, as if they're a visiting dignitary from the United States. And I'm 24 years old. I'm trying to sell myself. And I said, "Oh,
wearing your own suit,
wearing one suit I owned, all my assets on my back." And I'm going in there. I'm not a natural salesman, and I said, "I may not get out of here alive." But you know, I told them that I wanted to import Japanese track shoes into the United States, and it looked like they had a good product, and I wanted to talk about it. And they were thinking about exporting shoes to the United States. So we had, after initial awkwardness, we had some really interesting dialogue, and they brought in some shoes that they were working on, and there were some things to be really optimistic about, and I was into the shoes, and so I got a good response. So I ordered, I think, a dozen pair of shoes for samples.
But they said, what's your company, right?
Oh, yeah, and then they asked, what's your company name? I said, Blue Ribbon Sports.
And you just made that one up from Blue Ribbons at home?
Pretty much.
Just made it up, pulled it out of a hat?
Well, I had to have something, didn't I?
Did you think, like, this is just wild? I'm sitting there with these Japanese businessmen and sort of pretending I have this company, or didn't it hit you that way?
Well, it is something that I wanted to try. And the great thing about the entrepreneurship class I took, the professor had in probably 10 or 11 different outside speakers. And they had outside speakers that started in the most daring ways themselves. And so I said, this is what some entrepreneurs do. But
that deal with the Japanese company got out to a very slow start. It would take more than a year for Knight to receive the shoes.
Then finally, about December of 1963, they came. And I sent a few pair off to my old coach, who was really interested in shoes. And so he said, I'm coming up to Portland next month, let's have lunch. So I'm hopeful for an order. And I go to lunch with him, and I get more than an order. I get the ultimate endorsement. He says, how about making me your partner? So I said, okay, Bowerman, you got to put up $500. We'll order 300 pair of shoes. And I would put up $500. He says, deal.
And so what do you do with the 300 pair?
So basically, I get on weekends and in the evenings, and I go out to high schools, and I say, I've got this great shoe, and it's at a good price, and it's a good value, and you should have your kids buy it. And then someone would place orders there, and someone would walk in at, ring the doorbell at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and my father would be watching TV, and there'd be a kid trying on a pair of shoes in his living room, and he was quite surprised at the whole thing, but intrigued as well.
And it was just you at that point, and your coach and your partner.
Well, yeah, and then I would get people as it got going that would go on a commission. They'd get $2 a pair for selling a pair of shoes, and we'd have people out doing that, which was ultimately where I met the guy Jeff Johnson, who became our first full-time employee.
You know, it's funny, when I reading the Shoe Dog, I thought, wow, this is an adventure. That's what I thought in the beginning. This is exciting. This is an adventure. Why not? And I see crazy plan. I go, it's not a crazy plan. Why not?
You were right.
No, totally. But then as I read it says the struggle. Then I think, you know what, this is a crazy plan, because you know it was incredible struggle. Even like, you know, the cash flow, you're going back and forth to the banks trying to get. I mean, that's where the persistence, and I mean, it did become, at least in my mind, you know, I would have thought, okay, this is a crazy plan.
Well, I suppose, but that's what I wanted to do, and I was going to fight it to the bitter end.